This is The After Party, live with Kim McAllister. Pick a couch, grab a drink, and settle into the conversation.
Hey everybody, it's Friday. Woo! We made it. I don't want to say it's the last Biden administration Friday, but it is. I know we don't talk politics. I have to apologize to Wes because I hadn't seen him here in a while. And I kind of, like the mom in me, got a little bit worried. And so because he'd emailed me before, I tracked Wes down and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Wes is okay. Yeah. And I see Wes back in the show. I think I pressured him to come back to the After Party Live. I am so glad that you are here. You asked a question about Mark. He and Courtney have had to leave their home. They were under not mandatory evacuation, but recommended. And because they lost their house previously, they kind of were having a lot of anxiety sleeping at night. And so they rented a place to be out of the fire zone, but nearby. But that is not why Mark is not here. He's working at KFI this week and the times conflict. So he's on KFI in Los Angeles. Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, Mark will be in San Francisco. And that means that I think we're going to try to have Michael Schur back. If not, I will fill in, but that's what's going on the Mark Thompson show. So he's okay. He's just working at KFI. And doing that. So thank you, Wes. It's so good to see your name back in the chat. And I'm sorry if you felt pressured to come. I just want to make sure you're okay. It's like a well check. You know, you haven't seen somebody for a while. You want to make sure they're all right. Yeah, that was the story. Okay. Oh, did I miss something else? Yeah, I think I might have. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on. Jim Seals says, good afternoon. Get ready for the last after party of the Biden era. What a bummer. Ms. Organic, thank you for listening on the drive. You are welcome to do it. Of course, we're going to have Tim Sika in just about 10 minutes. He'll be along to talk movies, and he's got a great classic recommendation of the week. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. Let's jump into some of these stories, because the first one I have for you, the first one to present to you, is this special sword. It's a medieval sword, and it was pulled out of the ground at a medieval cemetery in the UK. Now, what they're doing, tampering around with graves and such. But these burials hold apparently a trove of grave goods. This sword they found dates back to the 5th and 6th centuries CE. It's so interesting. They pulled it out of this medieval cemetery in southeastern England, and it was in a man's grave. This is a weapon that has silver and gold plated metals on the hilt. It's engraved with patterns, and a ring was fused to its pommel, which is the top of the handle. The long blade supports a runic script. They also recovered parts of the scabbard as well, a sheath of wood and lined in beaver fur, which is kind of interesting. One of the lead archaeologists from the University of Central Lancashire, his name is Duncan Sayer, says swords like this are really special. He said it looks like this man buried with it was hugging it. The hilt and the guard ended up at the head and shoulder height and intermeshed with his face and his personal appearance. They think that this sword might have been a gift from a royal, and that it might have been used for generations, which signified its social status before accompanying its last owner to the grave. Apparently, it gave him authority. They excavated 12 burials in this cemetery, and they think there could be as many as 200 internments here. The same grave with the man hugging the sword contained a gold pendant engraved with a dragon or a serpent. Researchers think it might have been a treasured keepsake belonging to a female relative. All of the graves belonging to men contained larger weapons, spears, shields. The women's graves held knives, brooches, buckles, and other artifacts. This sword is soon going to be featured on a BBC program called Digging for Britain. The cemetery is said to be this extraordinary Anglo-Saxon cemetery with beautifully furnished graves, a lot of weapons burials, uh, the this astonishing sword as well. It's been suggested that swords have their own distinct identity, and the ring on this one may suggest it's a gift from a king or a very important lord. So they're analyzing this weapon and they've x-rayed it. Here's a picture of the x-ray of this sword, which is kind of fascinating. They haven't examined all of the runes or the words on the sword yet. They don't say anything that researchers and archaeologists are able to understand. But apparently, it would have been meaningful to the people who used and saw it and understood its history. So, after these artifacts from the cemetery are excavated and conserved, they'll be taken to the Folkestone Museum in Kent. The researchers say the graves are near Canterbury, north of Folkestone. They haven't said exactly where. And I'm conflicted. What do you think? Do you think this medieval, though fascinating and interesting sword should have stayed buried with the man hugging it? Or, I mean, that was the intent, right? That was whether it was his last wishes to be buried with a sword or his family's wishes. Do you think that we should be pulling things out just because they're cool and interesting? Because I am fascinated by it. On the other hand, I find myself wondering whether we should be really tampering with these graves and taking this stuff that we don't really have business taking. Oh, Rhonda loves swords. Yeah. Santi says it's the Excalibur sword. He who pulls it out must have a pure heart and dedication to purpose. Yeah. Nullifidian wonders how many people that sword killed. It looks huge, doesn't it? If they DNA test it, says Tammy, they may be able to figure out some identities. I don't know. Probably not. I mean, it's probably too old to know anyone. Maybe in descendants? I don't know. I Meredith, I agree. We need to stop being grave robbers. I know that there's historical need, maybe interest, probably better word, historical interest. We want to piece together history. We want to know more about life then. We want to see these things, but it feels wrong to take them from graves. So, Trevor wants to know what the statute of limitations is on final wishes. I guess it doesn't matter. I guess it doesn't matter. Uh, you might be able, if you took DNA from the bones, you might be able to know more about the background of the person buried as far as their ancestry, like where they hailed from, but we won't know who these people are. It's not like there's a DNA bank for medieval lords. I don't know. I'm not sure what we would know other than, oh yeah, he's an Anglo-Saxon guy and his ancestry is from England. But maybe, who knows what information could be shed? Maybe something interesting. Yeah, it does look heavy, doesn't it? Really heavy. Interesting. Interesting, but also, yeah, I don't know. A little bit wrong. In the San Francisco or SF Gate today is this picture of this weird looking creature, which apparently has never been photographed alive before. So this picture is allegedly the first picture of this shrew. This is the Mount Lyell shrew, and it looks a lot like other shrews in the Sierra Nevada. Small, grayish brown, pointy little nose. It has a distinction, though, that sets it apart. And you wouldn't be able to see a picture of it because there aren't any Until a few months ago, it was the only known mammal in California that had never been caught on camera. So I guess the scientists say it's really difficult to capture a Mount Lyell shrew. But in November, 3 researchers took the first ever photographs of this tiny little shrew. Might be the first time a human has seen a living Mount Lyell shrew. It hasn't been trapped or recorded in 2 decades. It's very possibly one of the most poorly known mammal species in California. The Mount Lyell shrew seen here is 9 to 10 centimeters long, weighs between 2 and 3 grams, little guy. It occupies a small elevated area of the eastern Sierra Nevada. It eats insects, and that's all they know because they don't know very much about its diet. It has small, beady eyes like shrews do, a pointy nose, and spends most of its time below ground. The shrew was first identified more than 100 years ago, but we don't really know very much about it. Apparently, it's really hard to capture. And these researchers came up with the idea of this project after trapping and photographing small rodents in the Sierra on a trip for a class, a mammalogy class. And it sparked in them this fascination with these smaller animals. So when they got home, they researched and they learned this Mount Lyell shrew is the only California mammal species that was never photographed alive. And so they decided they're going to take a picture of it. And they did. So this is pretty cool. And here is, I have another picture of it that I want to show you because these are the only photos of this creature. You Google it and you can't find a picture of it because there weren't any until now. So here's one. Here's another. Look at him in there. They got it. Very elusive little guy. He's there seen in the brush near Lee Vining in the Eastern Sierra. They got a permit from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and left the Berkeley campus in November, took a 3-night field expedition, set up camp in the high desert of the Eastern Sierra near Lee Vining, and they dug holes near a stream and in wetland areas and inserted these pitfall traps, like kind of plastic cups. They filled them with cat food and mealworms, and they captured 2 shrews within the first 2 hours. There apparently are other species of shrews that live in this area. But the Mount Lyell shrew was among the first they trapped, so they kind of got lucky in this. They say the reason why no one has ever photographed a Mount Lyell shrew before is because they have a really fast metabolism, and apparently they'll die if they don't eat every 2 hours. So if you're going to catch a living Mount Lyell shrew, you have to monitor these traps constantly. If you set an overnight trap, you wake up in the morning to find the shrew dead. So that's no good. So they slept for no longer than 2 hours at a time, these researchers, checked the traps regularly, and they got it. They got these pictures. And apparently the shrew was living when it was captured and living when it was released, and all is well. So there you go. Now we have pictures of the Mount Lyell shrew. All right. It is my absolute pleasure every week. I am just the luckiest girl. I tell you, at the movies with Tim Sika, we get to do it again. And Tim has a great list of movies. Welcome, Tim Sika, to the After Party Live.
Hi, Kim. I don't know how fortunate you are, but thank you for the nice introduction. I always appreciate it.
I feel fortunate. Your Critics' Choice Awards, I saw it was rescheduled yet again.
Yeah. They haven't given us a date, but I suspect it will probably be sometime in February. I know it's well, I think they're making the right decision. I mean, who wants to celebrate right now? We're too close to the fires and people are still hurting too much. So
Absolutely.
but I'll talk more about that when it happens. But
Okay.
I suspect I don't know for sure, but I suspect probably sometime in February. Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of movies on your list, so let's get cracking because the first
Okay.
one is Wolfman.
Wolfman. Yeah, Wolfman. Yes. Okay, Wolfman. It's an American horror film. It's directed by Australian filmmaker Lee Whannell, writer of the first three Saw movies. Have you ever seen the Saw
Oh,
movies? Oh,
no, this is not my
they are
jam,
in.
but I know
Yes.
people like it, so there you go.
Yeah, they are intense. Let's just put it that way. And he was also involved in the Insidious movie franchise IP and six of those films. And prior to that, he wrote and directed a remake of The Invisible Man. I think that was just a couple of years ago, which was a pretty good movie. So I guess it's fair to say that he's a man who loves horror, right? So now we have Wolfman, which is a reboot of The Wolfman, which was that 1941 black and white horror movie starring Lon Chaney Jr. Really, really good classic gothic horror movie. And I think there was a remake of that one too in 2010, I think, starring Benicio del Toro, if my memory serves. But anyway, this reboot is all rewritten with a much more modern approach, with very tame world building, by the way. But it's basically about this guy who is a father to a young girl who had a lousy father growing up. And this all figures into the rather strained plot, which I won't spoil. But this guy, he's played by Christopher Abbott. He's determined not to do with his daughter or make the same mistakes with his daughter that his father made with him or did to him. And so he's, for one, he's very protective of her. And he becomes particularly protective of her when this werewolf who attacks him one night while he's on a getaway with his daughter and his wife, only to become infected himself and slowly transform into a werewolf himself. I mean, this really stretched in their imprinting this new stamp upon the material, which in my opinion should have been more gothic. It should have had a less modern approach because, I mean, it's like it's daddy issue stuff. And I'm thinking, younger people making movies. But my word on Wolfman is that it's just okay. It's well produced. It's reasonably spooky. It's reasonably tense. It can be unnerving at times. There's lots of jump scares with this absolutely deafening soundscape, sound design, especially in IMAX. I saw it in IMAX, and my God, was it loud. There's some nice horror movie flourishes and touches, where you go, oh, that was pretty cool. The guy's werewolf transformation was appropriately gross. So yeah, I mean, in summation, it's perfectly okay, but I don't think it's going to leave genre fans screaming for more. Let's just say that, and let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to recommend it. Horror fans are going to go anyway, but I don't think they're going to embrace it because there's nothing particularly new or original or exceptional about this reboot. So there you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is The Last Showgirl.
Yeah. This is a character-driven drama. It's directed by Gia Coppola, granddaughter of director Francis. And it is about a middle-aged Las Vegas showgirl, very nicely played by Pamela Anderson, who's in the poster there, who's facing this kind of uncertain future because she goes to work one day and she learns that the burlesque review that she's performed in for 30 years is suddenly scheduled to close. Oh. So it's like, whoa. So the story, in fact, takes place on the day of the last night of this burlesque theater, where these women in this review are performing, and she's one of the headliners. It's based on a play, so there's some substance here to the proceedings of a movie which is really about loss and growing old, and what age does to women in this culture, feeling societally displaced and wondering, what's next at this age. Is there anything I think I can even do, especially after spending my whole professional life stripping half naked and being ogled at by a bunch of pervy men. And, I'm getting long in the tooth too. And for a woman in burlesque, well, we all know what that means. So I like this film. I thought Pamela Anderson was really touching and vulnerable. And for once in her career, she gets this role that she could really sink her teeth into. Jamie Lee Curtis is in this too. She plays her waitress best friend and former showgirl, whose makeup and costume seem to be doing more actual acting for her than she's doing herself. It's another stunt performance, like she did at Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I hope she can professionally wriggle herself out of, because she's a much better actress than people give her credit for. But anyway, the movie's good. It's poignant. I love the evocation and the presentation of women living this life, performing in this line of work, all the backstage stuff and the interactions of the women with each other.
Yeah.
It's occasionally annoying how self-unaware these characters are. And the movie, for me, the movie seemed to be missing something that would have elevated it from good to maybe great. And for me, the biggest problem was that the director, Gia Coppola, I think she's much too young to be tackling the issues this film raises. I think if the film had been directed by a woman over 50, it would have maybe filled in the gaps that were missing for me. But overall, there was enough in the film to hold one's interest and to have a very real rooting interest in the main character played by Pamela Anderson. She plays this seasoned showgirl who is closer to the end than to the beginning. She really anchors the film and makes up for whatever shortcomings it may have had or might have. So I like the film and I recommend it.
What's interesting is you say the director didn't have enough experience as far as being a woman who's going through changes in life and getting older. But
Yeah.
you've got, I mean, she could have tapped into these two actresses' experiences because you have Pamela Anderson,
Yeah.
who's stopped wearing makeup and
Yeah.
is, saying, listen, this is what an older woman looks like in her life. And this is me. I'm tired of putting on
Yeah.
airs. This is
Yeah.
me in my life. Same thing with Jamie Lee Curtis, who let her hair go gray and is another one of these women who's outspokenly saying, listen, I'm not going to be getting all this plastic surgery. I'm not going to be doing all this stuff to make you think I'm more beautiful than I
Yeah.
am, or to be some
Yeah.
type of fake Hollywood star. So you have these women in this industry, which is totally based on their looks and, and their youth, and how
Yeah.
young they can stay, for how long
Yeah.
they can stay young looking. And if
Yeah.
the director didn't have the experience, her main stars did. So I don't know why they didn't use.
I think probably, and I would argue that the director probably did think that that's what she was doing, or maybe she thought her, again, and I can't read people's minds, but maybe she thought that her actors would give that to the film, and they do give that to the film. But there's moments where, when I'm watching it, I'm going, this is really good, but there's something here that they're not dropping the other shoe. There's something that I think an older woman directing it would have brought to it. I could be wrong. That's just my theory. Gia Coppola, she's young. She's in her 30s. I don't think she's all that great a director anyway. I think she directs movies because she happens to be in the whole Coppola dynasty, but that's a whole nother thing. This one is, I think, her best film. Just because I think the women in it make it worth seeing. I mean, Pamela, and there's a scene where she's auditioning and she's basically being like completely disregarded by this a-hole who is judging her on her looks.
Yep.
And it's just, oh God, I'm thinking about it now and I just get goosebumps. I mean, it's so poignant, so touching, but the film is missing that feel all the way through. It only comes across occasionally, and it's due to the actors. So that's my theory anyway, but I still recommend the movie. It's worth seeing. The women in it are fabulous,
The Last Showgirl.
Yeah.
Unstoppable.
Yeah, another sports drama, a wrestling drama, and a sort of sports biopic, which tells the story. First time I ever learned about this guy. His name was Anthony Robles. Okay. He's an American wrestler who won the 2011 NCAA Individual Wrestling National Championship.
Well done, Anthony.
Despite Kim being born with only one leg.
Wow.
Yeah, it stars Jarrell Jerome. He's a fine young actor here. He won an Emmy for that Netflix miniseries, When They See Us. Really good series. If anybody's ever not seen it, check it out. He was also in the Oscar-winning Moonlight. But yeah, anyway, the movie, really good story. One worth seeing for its story alone. We see with this guy, Anthony Robles, it's pretty accurate too, because he wrote a book. I didn't read the book completely, but I kind of skimmed through it. And basically this movie tells the story. And he was I think he was one of the producers. He was one of the what do they call those people? The people that, like, the advisors on the film. So he was checking technical it every step of the way. Yeah. But watch it, technical advisor, that's it. But just, watching what this guy, Anthony Robles, was able to do despite being told he couldn't. I mean, he was a wrestler. And if anybody's ever wrestled, I think wrestling requires, I believe, more physical strength than any other sport. If you've ever wrestled, you know what I mean. And that's with two legs. This guy had one, and he won championships wrestling people with two. So the story's good, the performances are good. It's a pretty standard sports uplift drama, but hey, what else could it be? And you leave the theater. One of the things I thought leaving the theater, I was left with this, and I complain about my life.
Right.
What this guy Robles accomplished in his life through means by which any sane individual would deem impossible, you're thinking, man, I have no reason to complain about anything ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So that lasted for about a day, but at least it lasted for about a day. And so, yeah, it's a well-made movie that is effective. It accomplishes what it sets out to accomplish. The only stretch here, Jennifer Lopez as Judy Robles, Anthony Robles' mother. I love Jennifer Lopez, but she's a bit too beautiful and glamorous to be completely believable as this struggling, beleaguered mom. I love her, and she was good and all, but I don't think it was meant, or maybe it was meant for we in the audience to keep remarking to ourselves, God, Jennifer Lopez is still gorgeous.
Yeah.
Anyway, small quibble, but in what is otherwise a very respectable and rah-rah sports drama about overcoming what are seemingly insurmountable odds. I mean, this movie nails that theme to the wall, and you leave it going, man, first of all, I'm never going to complain again, and second of all, I'm going to do this thing that I didn't think I could do. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. It's very infectious, and it's a great crowd pleaser.
And it looks like it's on Prime as well.
Yeah, yes, I think I don't know if it had a San Francisco theatrical. I know it had an LA and a New York theatrical to make it eligible for Oscar consideration. And then I think that was the limited theatrical release. And it's on Prime as of today, I believe. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's why. Yeah, that's why I thought I better cover it. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Vermiglio.
Yeah, and you know what? You said it the same way I did until I was corrected.
Vermiglio,
yes. Right.
I wondered. It could have gone either way there. Yeah, Vermiglio.
You did what I did, and they told me very nice. I said, okay, yeah, Vermiglio, yeah. This is probably the best film of the week. Certainly, it's the most beautiful looking, the most character driven, and the most observational. Certainly in terms of human behavior. It won the Grand Jury Prize at the 2024 Venice Film Festival, and it's about life in this mid-20th century Italian alpine village called Vermiglio. And that's where the movie gets its title. It's a very remote mountain village steeped in Catholicism and a lot of fervent religious belief. And the movie's focus is on specific people in the village, mostly this family of I believe it's like 10 children, father, mother, struggling to survive. And the regularity of life in this village is up. This is where the movie gets kind of shifts into a higher gear. The regularity of their life is upended one day with the arrival. It takes place in 1944, by the way, during the Second World War, with the arrival of a war deserter, who the townspeople rather warily welcome into their citizenry fold, but they're still not quite sure anyway. And then things happen. And so it's interesting, Kim. I actually didn't know what I felt or thought about this film when I was watching it until I think it was the second to last scene. All I'll say is it involves a mother and her baby, which for me literally made the film. It was like, oh, I see what this film is. Oh my God. And it made me think about what I had just seen through the lens of this incredible moment, this incredible scene of this mother with her baby, what I call, for want of something better, the film's summation scene, which will tear at anybody who claims to have a heart. I saw this scene and I wept. It was so powerful, so very, very moving. This is also slow cinema. It takes its time. and it takes time for the viewer to align with its rhythms, but you're more than amply rewarded for making the commitment this film requires in order for its effect to register if you stick with it, because it's masterful in how it achieves that feeling that I'm talking about, that emotional reaction that comes in the last 5 minutes. And like I said, it's slow cinema, but in our current American cinema of breakneck and, breathless speed, it was a very welcome cinema. At least it was for me. It's evocative in terms of its time, 1944, and place, this remote mountain village in Italy. You feel like you're living there too. Its depiction of the way in which a certain kind of people lived at that time and behaved is positively haunting. It's ravishingly beautiful, especially as it goes along. Some of the frames, in fact, look like or actually resemble Vermeer paintings. I'm sure they did that deliberately. It's just a very, very special film, and a kind of hymn to life and death and what's really important in any life, in any time, in any place. I mean, it's a wonderful movie, but it's slow. So if anybody hearing me talking right now and contemplating seeing it, just sit there and know that if you get through the whole movie, you'll be grateful because it really comes together in the final moment, which is, oh my God, I think one of the most amazing scenes in cinema I've ever seen. Yeah.
Right. Well, that makes me very interested and curious about this movie, Vermilio.
Yeah.
You have a list of documentaries you think are worth seeing, and this is kind of your streaming recommendations. And the first one is Jerry Springer, Fight Camera Action.
Oh God, I think I wrote to you that I said something like, the title tells you everything that this movie is about. Okay, what it is, it's a 2-part documentary on the Jerry Springer Show. Trash TV at its appallingly worst, in my opinion, and a show which brought out the basest and the lowest angels, if you want to call them that, more like devils or demons of our natures, to sort of paraphrase Abraham Lincoln here. What shocked me most about this, when I was watching this movie, about this show, was how long it ran. Do you know how long it ran, Kim? It ran, I thought it was like 5 seasons. I remember it was a blur. I don't even think I ever watched a full show because like 10 seconds was too much for me. It ran for 27 seasons from 1991 to 2018. I hadn't realized that it ran so long.
For a long time.
Oh my God.
What were the dates again?
1991 to 2018. How many years is that? Oh my, 27 years. Oh my God. I don't know what that says about our culture. But anyway, it's a fascinating documentary about, and I'm just going to say this, about some truly sick people, producers mostly of a truly, in my opinion, sick show, and a portrait also of the brainchild behind the show. This Prince of Darkness guy named Richard Dominic, whose mantra behind the show was, let's see how far we can go. Let's see how far we can take this. Let's push this thing to the limits. And who actually says in this documentary, this, and he was serious. He said if he could have gotten away with killing someone on television, he would in fact execute someone on TV. He would do it. These people, these producers, it turns out, no surprise here, they were only interested in money. I was appalled because the documentary goes behind the scenes. I was appalled listening to them talk cavalierly about how the guests on the show were insensitively treated and lied to. They were set up. They were worked over before they went on, encouraging them to fight, and they would like do these role plays with them, like screaming at them. If I told you, you were an SOB, what would you do to me? I mean, it's shocking. This is more shocking than the show, but when you watch the documentary, you totally understand why the show was the way it was. And none of these producers of the Jerry Springer Show, and Jerry Springer included, took any responsibility for the public reactions to the show. And I thought it was putrid, exploitive, nasty trash that they were peddling to viewers who were just lapping it up. It's like ancient Romans in the Colosseum. I think I even say that in the movie, like, yeah, we're just, we were like ancient Rome, when they were tearing, when lions were eating the Christians and people were roaring. That's what the Jerry Springer show. But they had shows like I Married a Horse. I Cut Off My Own Penis, and what was the other one? I'm Pregnant by My Brother. I mean, those were some of the milder ones.
Yeah.
So this doc is more shocking than the show itself was. I thought it was. I think it was a sick show produced by sick, irresponsible, morally reprehensible producers who exploited people for money and ratings. And an argument can be made for the Jerry Springer show. I think you can make this argument because I didn't realize that it was running so long, being responsible for the ruination of American culture and the emergence of that thing who's going to take the oath of office on Monday. Really. Yeah. Anyway, watch this one at your own peril, and that's all I'm going to say.
Are you recommending it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's insightful. I do think you go away with a really bad taste in your mouth thinking, I don't know. Have you ever seen the show? Have you ever watched the show?
Back in the day, I wasn't like a regular watcher, but flipping through, you see a scene, who's your daddy or whatever. And you watch for a second and then you think, why am I watching this? And you move on.
And then you move on. Yeah. Well, So I you know what? I make no judgments. I did when I said it was sick, but when you listen to these producers like talk about how they were involved in what they did, and their smugness about, people were just jealous of us because we were, we even ousted Oprah in the daytime ratings war and we made so much money, they were so jealous. To me, I don't know. I don't know where to put that, because if they had just admitted that, because, somebody was actually murdered. I mean, this is in the documentary. Somebody was actually murdered by one of the guests on the show. It was a woman and a man. It was sort of like, he's not your man anymore. He's mine. Go screw a duck or whatever. And the woman was set up and lied to, and she walked off. The guy later saw 2 days later, 2 weeks later, when the show was on, he was in a bar and he saw the show and he went bonkers and he went over to her apartment and murdered her. Ugh. And even then, the show stayed on the air, and they were like, "Well, we didn't know anything about this. They set her up. Anyway. It's just whatever." And there's many sides to this. You can look at it any other way, but it made the documentary made me crazy, and yet it was insightful as a piece of investigative journalism. Yeah, I recommend it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. A lot of comments about Springer in the chat.
Oh, good.
What do you have to say about this? Let's move on to the next one. This is called Don't Die, The Man Who Wants to Live Forever.
Yeah, this is also an interesting doc about, and also streaming on Netflix, about Brian Johnson. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
I have to admit, I didn't either. He's this tech millionaire who spends over $2 million a year on trying to de-age himself.
Oh.
And yeah, the movie is not only a portrait of this guy, but it also explores the various methods and scientific techniques and experimental medical treatments that Brian Johnson uses to slow the natural aging process. Very controversial guy, very controversial figure, very interesting documentary. I kind of fall on the side of this guy's way too out there. On the other hand, he is doing some things that come out in this piece that I think will, in the long run, have some positive effect on people wanting to improve their lives and maybe live longer, healthier lives. So anyway, I could talk for hours about this movie, but we still have a couple more to get to here. But I recommend it because it's an interesting think piece about this complicated guy who one second you're thinking this guy is completely insane, and then in another second you're thinking, okay, well maybe there is something here. Maybe he's latched onto something. It's very, very interesting. He's got the thing where the controversy comes in is he's got this. He's, of course, because he's an entrepreneur, right? And he thinks
Mhm.
this way. He's got this whole line of products that he's
Oh.
selling that I've looked at, and other people have looked at, and other like experts have looked at. Like he sells this olive oil that he basically claims is this miracle olive oil, and it turns out that it's just like the kind of olive oil you buy in the store, but people are paying like $40 a bottle for it.
Of course
Stuff
they
like
are.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that that makes you go, I don't know about this guy. On the other hand, some interesting things. He has actually kind of de-aged about like, I don't know what, like 4 years or something. He does this rigorous routine where he takes like 200 tablets a day, this total focus on himself and this regime, this exercise stuff he does. It's really kind of crazy, but
Well,
it's interesting.
what kind of life do you have
Yeah,
if your
exactly.
whole
Well,
focus is on
yeah,
reversing the aging process? You can't
right.
enjoy the actual life that you are
Well,
given.
yeah, that's one of the arguments the film presents, and yeah,
Yeah.
it talks about his personal life, and he was married, he had 3 kids, he got divorced. I think in the film he got a new girlfriend. Yeah, and he admits, but there's something smarmy about the whole thing that I just whatever. It's interesting. It raises very interesting questions about life and longevity and the
Mhm.
science of health, while at the same time being this interesting portrait of this kind of weird guy.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my summation of Don't Die, the Man Who Wants to Live Forever. But I recommend it. It's worth seeing for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
On Netflix,
Yes.
Avicii, I'm
I'm
Tim.
Tim. Now, yeah, also, and I just had to check out a film called I'm Tim, right? Right.
Right.
But this one, Avicii, I'm Tim. Do you know Avicii?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, see, yeah, okay. Well, I didn't either. But yeah, this movie's not about Tim Sika, but it's about this Swedish musician who's in the picture there, and
Okay.
DJs. His real name was Tim Berling, or Bergling,
Mhm.
but he was known as DJ Avicii,
Okay.
who turned out to be this prodigious musical talent. Obama referred to him once in one of his speeches, which they show in the movie. I guess Obama was like, wanting to appear hip. Maybe he even knew his music, but he was basically a DJ. He had this tremendous, like, prodigious musical talent, and he turned out to be one of the defining musical artists of his generation. He died. Well, it's a tragic story. Fascinating story, fascinating artist, told in his own words. And another one of the really fine documentaries being made today that tell the most amazing human stories. And this one is a prime example of that. This is a young guy who was a genius, who sought out fame, but when he got fame, it really did a number on him, that really can only be experienced when you watch this movie. He actually kind of narrates it on camera, and I think it was shortly before. Well, everybody knows he died at age 28, but I think probably shortly before he passed. And it's this tragic story that's interesting, that's sad. You learn a lot about this guy, about his following. He was like a rock star. He was a DJ,
Yeah.
but he was in demand all over the world, and he played before, thousands and thousands and thousands of people in these massive arenas, sometimes alone, sometimes he would perform before another artist like Madonna or somebody.
Wow.
But he was this really, really big deal. I had never heard of him before. So I just found it really interesting, and I appreciated learning something new, which I always do when I see documentaries about subjects I never heard of. So, but anyway, it's called Avicii, I'm Tim, and it's streaming on Netflix. Very interesting movie. Yep.
Recommended by Tim Sika.
Yeah. By I'm Tim Sika. Yes. Yeah.
Becoming Hitchcock: The Legacy of Blackmail.
Yeah. Okay. Film geeks, film fans, listen up again. Last week we talked about SK-13, Kubrick's Endgame, which told the story of Eyes Wide Shut, Kubrick's final film. Well, this week, they're making so many of these, and I love it. It's Alfred Hitchcock, and one of Hitch's earliest films, Blackmail, which he shot silent and with sound. This documentary, now streaming on Max, is called Becoming Hitchcock, The Legacy of Blackmail. And Blackmail was a movie that Hitchcock made. It was released in 1929, right around the time films were shifting from silent to sound. So he actually filmed it. He filmed a silent version and a sound version, but it was the sound version that was like a big hit. It was a British thriller. This movie was based on a play about this London woman who is blackmailed after she kills a man who tries to rape her. That's basically the story. But what this movie does so brilliantly is written and directed by Laurent Bouzereau, and it's narrated by Elvis Mitchell, who I think Elvis Mitchell used to write film reviews for the New York Times. What it does is it shows how this film Blackmail, which was a big success for Hitchcock and got him lots of offers to come to Hollywood, how this movie laid the groundwork for everything that was to follow in all of Hitchcock's other films, more famous films, all of the themes and all of his interests. You know, Hitchcock was really into crime and stories about sex and stories that had food in them, and this thing he called the MacGuffin, which was the thing that motivates the plot but is of no importance or interest to the audience. The cool blonde, the innocent man accused of a crime he didn't commit, the humor. There's a lot of humor in Hitchcock's films, even in his dark films, the voyeurism, all of that is in Blackmail, which in Blackmail demonstrates Hitchcock's mastery of sound, transitioning as he was doing from silent films, which he made a number of in England. He made a number of silent films, and through the lens of Blackmail, we get what literally amounts to one of the best documentaries about Alfred Hitchcock's entire film career, because they connect all of his other films to this early film. This is another movie I could go on about for hours, but it's a must for movie lovers. It's a superb testament to the cinema of Alfred Hitchcock, who William Friedkin famously said, you know, aspiring film directors would say, hey, you know, I'm going to go to film school. What do you think? And he said, hey, you don't need to go to film school if you want to direct movies. Just study the films of Alfred Hitchcock, because it's all there. And yeah, I agree with that. And that's this movie. It's a quick watch. I think it's like a fleet 70 minutes. And if you're a film fan, if you don't know anything about Hitchcock, you'll find it fascinating. If you love Hitchcock, I think it'll be an eye-opener, as it was for me, how the filmmakers connect this 1929 sound black and white movie to Hitchcock's entire canon of movies. It's brilliant, and it's fascinating, and it's entertaining, and yeah, I loved it, and it's streaming now on Max.
Kim loved it. Okay. The next one is your classic movie recommendation of the week. And this week you have selected 12 Angry Men.
Have you ever seen it?
I have.
Oh, you have. I think this is one of the I think it's one of the best legal dramas ever made, literally, because the film is actually about the democratic process of trial by jury. That's 12 Angry Men, superb, and everywhere a movie needs to be called great. It's the first movie directed by the great, there's the cast, the great Sidney Lumet, and it stars Henry Fonda, Lee J. Cobb, E.G. Marshall, Robert Webber, Jack Klugman, Martin Balsam, Jack Warden, Ed Begley. Not a woman to be seen here, because it's 1957 for one, but it's about a jury of 12 guys. Yeah, there's Lee J. Cobb there. 12 men who have to deliberate the conviction or the acquittal of a teenager who's charged with murder on the basis of reasonable doubt, right? And disagreement and conflict among the jurors, it surfaces through the course of their deliberations, and it forces all of them to question their own morals and their own prejudices and their own values, and how those morals, prejudices, and values affect their judgment and their reasoning. Superb film. Came out in 1957. It hasn't aged one bit. In fact, it's more resonant than ever, especially with the attempts being made by certain Republican oligarchs to undermine our democracy. It's a movie that flies by, and they just don't make movies like this anymore. I I just just see it and just be dazzled. They have book clubs, Kim, where folks will read a book and then they gather together over wine and
Yeah,
various
I have
foodstuffs.
a book club.
Yeah, I keep meaning to join one, but yeah, I'm so busy. But anyway, there should be a movie club, and 12 Angry Men would be a first good movie, be the perfect movie to fit the bill, because not only is this movie entertaining, but it gives like so much. It allows for so much discussion to talk about that it could easily fill 2 hours discussion time in a movie club, like it would if it were a book in a book club. That's this movie.
That's your next podcast, Tim Sika. It's called Movie Club. You assign a movie every week, and then it's an hour-long discussion,
oh
30-minute discussion of the
hey,
movie.
I'll tell you, I love that ideal, but oh my gosh, yeah, but hey, thanks for the idea.
We should do it.
Thanks for the idea. I know, it's just like, oh yeah, okay. I gotta like split myself in 3.
I know.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. I used to run a film series. I did this for 14 years, and it was not ever advertised, but it was a similar kind of thing where I think we had at our most, we had 400 members. And what we did was, it's a concept that we should have patented. We could have made a lot of money on it, but it's been subsequently borrowed. But what we did was, we would show a movie. People would sign up for a season to see movies that they had no idea ahead of time what it was they were going to see.
Okay.
So in most cases, they were movies that, if people just heard about them, they wouldn't necessarily maybe go. But by the time they were finished with our movie and then with our discussion, because we'd bring in the filmmakers, sometimes we'd bring in the actors, we'd bring in film scholars to discuss it, they would think, wow, wow, that's something I never saw before. I kind of like this movie that I thought I would never even remotely enjoy or watch or even, spend time on. So yeah, so we did that for 14 years, and then COVID hit and bam, that was it,
Yeah.
And now Q&A, and that's when kind of Q&As were rarer. Now everybody does Q&As. I mean, there's Q&As going on almost after every movie in San Francisco now. So it kind of lost that appeal too. But yeah, Movie Club podcast with your hosts, Tim Sika and Kim McAllister.
I love it. All right, let's do a quick recap before we let you go. And this is going to be Wolfman, and you say about Wolfman that it's just okay. It's spooky, it's got some tense moments, it's got some jump scares, that you found it to be extremely loud, but it also has some cool moments. Despite that, you said it's just an okay movie, not really anything special or original about it. You're not recommending Wolfman. You say, nah, don't bother.
Nah.
The Last Showgirl, you said you like this. You said it's a nice role for Pamela Anderson, but that it's missing that thing that would push it over to greatness. You said overall you end up rooting for the main character, and you do recommend The Last Showgirl. Unstoppable, you said the story is good, the performances are good, this is a well-made, effective movie. You found J-Lo too hot to be a struggling mom, but you recommend Unstoppable. And
but I liked her. I like Jennifer Lopez, though.
Yeah. I mean, she just, is a little too Hollywood to be the mom from the gritty area.
Yeah, it's too bad they didn't de-glamour just a tad. Yeah.
Vermilio, you said that it made you weep. That's something that would make me sign up for this movie right off the bat. You said it takes some time to get into this one, but that it's masterful in bringing this emotional reaction, which you felt. Haunting, you said, beautiful scenery. You are recommending this movie, which you called wonderful but slow.
The best of the week.
Oh, best of the week. All right. As far as the documentaries and the streaming options this week, as for Jerry Springer Fights Camera Action, you said it's a fascinating documentary about some sick people behind this show. It's almost more shocking than the show, but you said you recommend it because you said it's insightful. As for Don't Die, the man who wants to live forever, about this tech bro who seems insane, but might have something to his whole point, you recommend it because you said it raises some interesting questions and it makes you think. Avicii. This one is Avicii, I'm Tim. You said it's a tragic story, but you learned something new, so you are recommending Avicii, I'm Tim. And Becoming Hitchcock, The Legacy of Blackmail. You said it's a must for movie lovers. It's a quick watch. It's fascinating, it's entertaining, and you absolutely love this one. And I saw Wes had a comment about, well, first of all, Wes wants to join Tim's club, Sika's Vintage Viewings. Yes. But Wes also said he loves Hitchcock films, but didn't know of this movie of his. So I think
Well,
you've
you know
given
what?
Wes something for that.
I'll say to Wes too. I follow the filmmaker. I've interviewed the filmmaker in the past, and I just happened to it kind of popped up, I think, in my email or somewhere, and I thought I didn't know about this movie either. So I just found out about it like 2 days ago.
Mhm.
So I'm with him on that. So it's
Yeah.
not being advertised. They just kind of like stuck it on HBO Max, I guess, or maybe it was made. I believe it was made for TCM, for the Turner Classic Movies.
Oh.
I think they financed it, but it's, there are so many movies. I don't know how filmmakers even get their movie. I think the fact that it got to HBO Max was a coup, and yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad to be able to bring some awareness to it, because
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about it either. Yeah.
I like the movie poster.
Yeah, it's
Your
so good. Yeah.
classic recommendation of the week is 12 Angry Men. You say it's superb, it hasn't aged, and they don't make movies like this anymore. So the classic rec of the week, 12 Angry Men. And I would say, even if you've seen this before, it's worth getting it back on and watching it again. Really good acting in this movie.
Yeah, it's really interesting watching it now. In view of what the politics are in this country, and where we're going, where it looks like we're headed, or maybe not. But yeah, it has special resonance more than ever. So it's a very timeless movie too. Yeah.
I went away. I said that is at the movies with Tim Sika. Thank you, Tim. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Kim. Talk to you next week. Thanks for giving me the forum to yammer on. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hi, Tim Sika. Oh, thank you very much. I love the comments. You guys had a lot of really good comments about Tim this week. Teacher Lori says, oh my God, original 12 Angry Men is great. And I noticed that all throughout Tim's segment, you guys had a lot to say about all these different movies. Teacher Lori writes, interesting how many of these party DJs are actually good musicians who for some reason couldn't break into the traditional music business. Yeah, so I think that'll be an interesting movie as well, or interesting documentary, which is streaming. It makes it super interesting. A lot of comments about this whole extension of life thing. And Judy says, how anyone's stomach can handle 200 tablets a day, we don't know. Yeah. John says lots of people are like that, taking all sorts of supplements every day, trying to stay younger. Michael D says, I say live for today, don't worry about death. Yeah, that'll be an interesting documentary, though. That's a good one. So Jerry Springer says, Wes, was TikTok before smartphones. Isn't that the truth? How we kind of just check our brains at the door and, want this entertainment that just numbs us. Absolutely. Okayest Mama Ever says of the Death movie, he spent millions of dollars and ended up looking like a middle-aged woman. Oh no. So thank you for all the comments. Really wonderful. We're running over time, so I don't have time to bring you any other stories, but suffice it to say, there's some really good stories coming for you on the After Party Live on Monday. Michael Schur will be back on the Mark Thompson Show on Monday, as will I. See you then, along with Gary Dietrich, and then the After Party Live for a Hide in Your Cave Monday. We'll do that together as we huddle in a support group for the happenings on Monday. But make it a great weekend. Have a really good one. And I'll see you right back here. Thank you for being here. I did want to, before I go, thank Wes, who has kicked in a $5 super sticker. Wes, that's not why I tried to track you down. I was worried about whether you were okay or not. Scott Rittenberg also with a $10 contribution a couple of days ago. And Marilyn and Yvonne, thank you guys so much for helping keep this show afloat. Really appreciate it. All right, you guys, have a really good weekend, and I'll see you back on YouTube on Monday. Bye-bye.
The After Party Live would like to thank the following contributors and viewers like you.
Safe travels, Heather. Maybe get a little snow fight in, a little skiing.